Tara staggered to the bathroom sink, scrubbing at her teeth again with trembling hands, trying to scrub away the taste that felt like it was lingering on her tongue. The more she brushed, the worse it got. The bitter metallic taste deepened, making her stomach churn in protest. She splashed water on her face, trying to shake off the sense of wrongness that had settled deep in her bones. But it didn't work. A sick, rotten odor seemed to cling to the air, choking the very space around her. Tara stood in front of the mirror, eyes wide with confusion. Her reflection looked different. Her skin was pale, more than usual, and her eyes were dark, sunken, like she hadn't slept in days. Her breath quickened, and panic started to claw at her chest. What was happening to me? She wasn't sure anymore. Everything felt like it was slipping away, like she was losing her grip on reality. The shadows in the corner of the bathroom seemed to stretch toward her, reaching out, bending unnaturally. Tara's mind raced, heart thundering in her chest. She wanted to scream, but the air felt thick, heavy with something far worse than fear. It felt like she was suffocating. She stepped back, knocking over a glass on the sink. The sound echoed in the bathroom, too loud, too sharp. Tara gasped, wiping the sweat from her forehead. She needed to get out. She needed to leave this place, leave the strange, suffocating air behind. But then, the voice, it came again, stronger now, more insistent, like a whisper calling through the space in her head. She sees you, Tara froze, her blood running cold. She turned toward the open door, her heart racing faster, and there, standing in the hallway, was the old woman. The figure was silhouetted by the dim lights from the street lamp outside, her face still hidden in the shadows. Tara's mouth went dry. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The woman's eyes, dark and ancient, pierced through her, just like before. That same knowing, that same sorrowful look that seemed to dig into her very soul. "Why are you doing this to me?" Tara finally managed to whisper, her voice shaking. She didn't know what to ask, didn't know what she was even afraid of, but she knew that the old woman was at the center of it all. The sensation of being watched, the dreams, the whispers, it all led back to her. The woman took a step forward, her step slow, deliberate, as if each movement was weighted with untold secrets. Tara's breath hitched, but she couldn't move. It was like the air had turned to stone, trapping her in place. "You took something from me," the old woman said softly, her voice raspy, like it had been buried deep within the earth for centuries. "And now, it must be returned." Tara swallowed hard, her pulse pounding in her ears. "What is she talking about?" What did I take from you?" Tara asked, her voice barely audible, barely a whisper. The old woman stepped into the bathroom, and Tara could see her more clearly now. Her clothes were ragged, her skin weathered and worn, like it had been touched by time itself. Her eyes, those deep, ancient eyes, never wavered from Tara's face. "Everything you've ever taken for granted," the woman said, each word heavy, like it was a burden she had been carrying for a long time. "Ho ho ho, you took my time, you took it all. And now, you will pay the price." Tara's stomach twisted. She wanted to laugh, to shake her head and walk away, to tell herself it was all just some sick nightmare. But she couldn't. The old woman's words sank deeper and deeper into her, like they were finding roots in her soul. "I didn't mean to," Tara whispered, more to herself than to the woman. She felt her legs weaken, and she grabbed the edge of the sink to steady herself. "What do you want from me?" The old woman's face softened for a moment, and Tara almost thought she could see a flicker of something other than sorrow, something that looked like regret. "I want you to understand," the old woman said, her voice now gentle, almost kind. "You can't keep taking from others and not expect to give something back." Tara opened her mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Her throat felt tight, constricted, as though she were choking on the air itself. The taste in her mouth, worse than ever, made her gag. She tried to spit it out, but it clung to her, relentless, like an invisible curse. The old woman took another step closer, her hands outstretched toward Tara, and for the first time, Tara didn't feel angry or defiant. She didn't feel scared either. She felt empty. Like the woman had already taken everything she had, without her even realizing it. "You took it all," the woman repeated. "Now, you must give it back." Tara's vision blurred, and she swayed on her feet. She reached out to the old woman instinctively, but her fingers brushed against something cold, something ancient and sharp, like bone. And then, in an instant, Tara found herself falling deep into the darkness. The room spun around her, the walls stretching and bending, warping into something unfamiliar, something terrifying. Her head slammed into the floor, and everything went black. When Tara woke again, she was no longer in her bathroom. She wasn't in her house at all. She was standing in the middle of a dense, fog-covered forest. The air was thick, suffocating, and the trees seemed to loom over her like silent, watching giants. Her breath came in short, panicked bursts as she looked around, trying to make sense of what was happening. The bitter taste was still in her mouth, sharper now. The rotten scent still clung to her like a second skin. But there was something else, something far worse than the physical sensations. The feeling of being trapped. Of being seen. Tara took a step forward, but the ground beneath her feet felt soft, unstable. She didn't know where to go, didn't know how to escape the suffocating sense of doom that wrapped itself around her. And then, she heard it, a voice, distant but unmistakable, drifting through the fog. Asterisk, she sees you, asterisk. Tara froze. The old woman's voice echoed again, and this time, it was louder, closer. Tara turned around, her heart racing in her chest. The old woman was standing there, as if she had been waiting for her all along. And this time, Tara knew, it wasn't over. It had only just begun. Her mother's frown deepened as she looked at Tara, her eyes narrowing. "That awful, rotten smell. It's like something died in here." Tara blinked, her stomach turning. She hadn't noticed anything. She hadn't smelled anything at all. She opened her mouth to say something, to brush it off as nothing, but her father stepped forward, his expression grim. "I noticed it last night, too," he said, voice low. "When you went to bed, there was something off in the air." Tara felt a cold chill rush through her, something deeper than the confusion that had settled in her chest. She couldn't understand why they were suddenly so focused on it. She had no idea what they were talking about. But as her parents stood there, their expressions darkening with concern, Tara's unease grew. Her mother took a step closer, still holding her nose. "Tara, you're not sick, are you? You've been acting strange lately." Tara opened her mouth to argue, to tell them it was all fine, that it was nothing, but the words stuck in her throat. Something about their concern made her feel even more on edge. Her mind raced back to the event of last night, the old woman's words, the terrible taste in her mouth, the suffocating air that surrounded her. "I'm fine," Tara said, her voice coming out too sharp, too quick. She forced a smile. "I'm just tired. Long shift ahead, you know." Her father's eyes softened for a moment, but there was still something unreadable in his gaze. "If you say so," he said. "But if you're feeling off, you should rest." Tara nodded quickly, eager to leave the conversation behind. She had to go. She had to get out of there before the smell, or whatever it was, got any worse. "I'll be fine, I promise. I'll see you later." Her parents exchanged another worried glance but didn't stop her as she grabbed her bag and rushed toward the door. Once outside, the cool morning air hit her, but it didn't help. The smell, that rotten, sickening scent, was still lingering in her nostrils, like it was attached to her, clinging to her skin, her clothes, everything. She didn't understand it. Why could no one else smell it? Why was she the only one? The feeling of being watched crept back over her as she walked to her car, every step heavier than the last. The voice, the whisper that had followed her through the darkness, seemed to hum in her ears. She sees you. Tara shook her head, trying to shake off the mounting dread. She had a job to do. She couldn't let herself get distracted by these feelings. She forced herself to focus on the day ahead, but no matter how much she tried to ignore it, that sickening smell clung to her like an invisible fog. The drive to work felt endless. She glanced at the clock in her car, still an hour to go. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting an eerie golden glow on the empty streets, but it didn't bring any comfort. She could feel the weight of it all pressing down on her, the strange events of the past few days, the old woman's cryptic warning, the growing sense that something terrible was about to happen. As she arrived at her job, Tara tried to pull herself together. She walked into the building, greeted her coworkers with a forced smile, and went to the back to start her shift. But even here, the smell seemed to follow her. It was faint, almost imperceptible to the others, but it was there. Something was wrong. Tara found herself drifting through the motions, her hands moving mechanically as she cleaned tables and restocked supplies. Her coworkers joked around, laughing and talking, but Tara couldn't focus. Her thoughts kept drifting back to that night, to the old woman's face, to the haunting words that echoed in her mind. She grabbed a cleaning rag, wiping down the counter, when a sudden, sharp pain shot through her head. It was like someone had driven a knife into her skull, and she gasped, her breath catching in her throat. The pain was so intense, she nearly dropped the rag. "Hey, Tara." Her coworker Jenna's voice broke through her dazed state. "You okay? You look pale." Tara blinked rapidly, trying to steady herself. The pain in her head started to subside, but her heart was still racing. She didn't want to show weakness, didn't want to admit that something was happening to her that she didn't understand. "I'm fine," she said, her voice a little too shaky. "Just tired. Long night." Jenna frowned but didn't push. "You sure? You've been acting kind of weird lately." Tara forced another smile. "It's nothing. I'm fine." But the words felt hollow, and deep down, Tara knew they weren't true. She wasn't fine. She hadn't been fine since the moment she'd laughed at the old woman. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Her head ached, her limbs felt like they were moving through water, and the smell, that sickening rotten scent, was growing stronger. Every time she tried to focus on something, it was like her mind was slipping further and further away. When her shift finally ended, Tara practically ran out of the building, desperate to get away. The sky was darkening as evening set in, the air thick with an eerie stillness. Tara's thoughts were a tangled mess as she walked back to her car, but one thing kept repeating in her mind. The old woman had said something would happen. And Tara could feel it. Whatever had begun was far from over. And she wasn't sure she could stop it. Tara felt the eyes on her everywhere she went, but no one ever said anything. It was as if they were all holding their breath, waiting for something. She tried to shake it off, telling herself that it was all in her head. But with each passing hour, the tension seemed to grow thicker. The air around her felt charged, like something was building, something just out of her reach but closing in. In the cab, the driver had practically flung the window open, even though the air outside was cooler than usual. He kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort, as if he couldn't quite place her. Tara shifted uncomfortably in the back seat, staring out the window, but she couldn't escape the sensation that the whole world was turning its back on her. "Where are we going?" the driver asked, his voice stiff, breaking the silence. Tara blinked, momentarily taken aback. "Oh, just straight to my place," she replied, trying to sound casual. The driver didn't respond right away, just nodded and kept his eyes on the road. Tara felt a chill in the pit of her stomach, her unease growing. She wanted to ask him if he could smell it too, that smell, but she didn't. Something stopped her, as though acknowledging it would make it real, like giving a name to a monster in the dark. At work, the discomfort was even worse. She noticed the subtle shift in the way people behaved around her. Her colleagues kept their distance, stealing glances when they thought she wasn't paying attention. She overheard snippets of whispered conversations. "Did you see Tara today? What's with her lately? Is she okay?" The words stung, though no one had said them directly to her face. Still, Tara could feel it, like an invisible wall separating her from everyone else. She was a stranger in her own life, an outsider in the world she used to dominate. It was as if the moment the old woman had looked into her eyes, the universe had turned its back on her, leaving her exposed and isolated. By lunchtime, Tara was beginning to feel suffocated by the weight of it all. She grabbed her lunch, sitting by herself in the corner of the break room, though she was more aware of the others than she wanted to be. They were talking, laughing too loudly, but she could see the sidelong glances, the way people shifted uncomfortably in their seats when she caught their eyes. She stared at her salad, her appetite lost. The rotten taste in her mouth hadn't gone away. It had only grown stronger, like it was seeping into her very being, clinging to her skin, her hair, even her thoughts. "What's happening to me?" Tara whispered to herself, her fingers shaking as she pushed the food around her plate. The unease, the whispers, the sense of wrongness, it was all growing, feeding off her fear. As she sat there, the door to the break room opened, and Tara's supervisor, Mrs. Lawson, walked in. Mrs. Lawson was an older woman, sharp and no-nonsense, the kind of person who never missed a beat. Tara braced herself, knowing that at any moment, Mrs. Lawson might pull her aside to ask what was going on. But instead, Mrs. Lawson walked past her without a word, her eyes avoiding Tara's. The cold shoulder felt like a slap, sharper than any words could have been. Tara watched her walk past, the tension between them thick enough to cut with a knife. When Mrs. Lawson sat down with the others, there was an obvious shift, a gap that seemed to widen between Tara and everyone else. Her head spun. Why was everyone avoiding me? She left her lunch half-eaten, a bitter lump of unease lodged in her throat. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Her hands were unsteady, her focus scattered. She couldn't stop thinking about the way people treated her, the strange way the air felt, as though something was just about to happen. As she walked out of the office building that evening, the streets felt different too. The usual sounds of the city seemed muffled, distant. The honking horns, the chatter of passers-by, they were all there, but they felt like they were coming from somewhere far away. The only thing she could hear clearly was her own heartbeat, thumping in her chest. Tara walked quickly, trying to shake the feeling that something was following her, but when she turned down an alley to cut through to her apartment, the feeling intensified. It was like a presence, something heavy, hovering just behind her. She glanced over her shoulder. No one was there. But the feeling didn't go away. It lingered. Suddenly, the wind picked up, howling through the alley, carrying with it the unmistakable scent, rotting, decaying, suffocating. Tara froze. She knew, deep in her gut, that this wasn't just her imagination anymore. Something was following her. And then she heard it. A soft whisper, barely audible, as if it was coming from the very air around her. She sees you, Tara spun around, heart racing, but the alley behind her was empty. She was alone. Still, the whisper lingered in her ears, and the scent seemed to be everywhere now, thick, cloying, impossible to escape. Tara's mind raced as she tried to make sense of it. Her eyes darted around the alley, every shadow, every corner feeling like a trap. The world seemed to tilt again, as though everything was slowly spinning out of control. And that's when she saw it. At the end of the alley, standing just beyond the reach of the streetlights, was the figure of the old woman. Her face was partially obscured by shadows, but Tara could feel her eyes on her, those deep, knowing eyes that seemed to see straight through her. Tara's breath caught in her throat, and she took an instinctive step back. The old woman smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was something darker, something that made Tara's blood run cold. "Come closer," the woman whispered, her voice like the wind, like the scent that clung to the air. "It's time." Tara's legs felt like they were made of stone, rooted to the ground. She wanted to run, to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. Every part of her screamed to flee, but she couldn't. The old woman stepped forward slowly, her ragged clothes brushing against the pavement. Tara's heart pounded in her chest, her body frozen with terror. She didn't know how, but she knew the old woman was the key to everything that was happening. And as the woman took another step closer, Tara could only watch, helpless, as the world around her began to shift and change in ways she couldn't understand. Something was coming. And Tara could feel it in her bones. Tara sat nervously in the dentist's chair, her palms clammy as she tried to suppress the rising panic inside her. The dentist had already examined her teeth, her gums, her tongue, and even her throat. His expression was one of confusion, his brow furrowed as he looked at her, then back down at his instruments. "Her teeth are perfect," he muttered again, more to himself than to Tara. "There's no medical reason for this smell." Tara's mother shifted uneasily beside her, glancing back and forth between Tara and the dentist. "What do you mean, no reason?" "She's been complaining about it for days, this rotten smell she can't get rid of." The dentist hesitated, looking at Tara like he was searching for something that wasn't there. "I've checked everything I can. Her mouth is healthy. No signs of infection. No issues with her teeth, gums, or throat. If this were an infection, I'd see something." He paused again, as if weighing his next words carefully. "But, truth be told, there's no physical cause for this odor." Tara's stomach churned. She wanted to speak up, to tell him that she knew it wasn't just a smell, that something was terribly wrong, but the words wouldn't come. She opened her mouth, but no sound escaped. Her body felt disconnected from her thoughts, like everything was happening to someone else. Her mother was the one who broke the silence. "So what does that mean? Are you saying this is all in her head?" The dentist's eyes softened, but he shook his head. "I'm not suggesting it's psychological, but I can't find any medical reason for it. Perhaps there's something environmental, or it could be stress, though it's rare for stress to manifest so physically." Tara felt her throat tighten at the suggestion. Stress. She didn't feel stressed, not in any way that would make sense. She had always been in control of her life, confident, brash, loud. Yet here she was, being told that her body might be betraying her for reasons she couldn't understand. "Is there anything you can do?" Tara's mother asked, her voice laced with worry. The dentist gave a small, helpless shrug. "I can't offer much help unless we find a physical cause. You should follow up with a physician if the symptoms persist. I would also recommend looking into any possible environmental factors, things like food, pollutants, or allergens could contribute to strange odors, though they usually don't last this long." Her parents nodded, clearly unsatisfied with the answer, but not knowing where else to turn. Tara sat there, feeling the weight of their concern pressing down on her, as though it was only her fault that this strange condition wouldn't go away. The dentist stood and gestured for them to follow him to the door, his expression apologetic. "Let me know if it gets worse, and we can explore other possibilities. But for now, I'm afraid I can't help you further." Tara's legs felt like jelly as she stood up from the chair. Her parents led her out of the dentist's office, their voices a low hum in the background, but Tara couldn't focus on their words. She was lost in her own head, the feeling of something lacking just behind her thoughts threatening to break through. As they exited the building, Tara's mind raced. Her teeth, her gums, everything the dentist had said made sense. But the smell, the constant sickening scent that clung to her like a shadow, it didn't. It couldn't just be in her head. The dread gnawed at her, like a heavy weight in her chest. She stepped into the car, her parents chatting softly as they drove home, but Tara felt nothing but the pull of something darker, something she wasn't ready to face. That evening, alone in her room, she stared at herself in the mirror. Her reflection was tired, drawn, her skin pale beneath the fluorescent lights. She opened her mouth slowly, breathing in deeply, but no matter how many times she checked, the smell was still there. It lingered, sickly sweet, like decay, like death itself. She shivered, a cold sweat creeping over her skin. She had to understand. She had to figure out what was happening to her, but everything, the smell, the dreams, the whispers, pointed back to the old woman. The last time she had seen the woman, in the alley, Tara had felt something shift in the air, something that made her blood run cold. "It's time," the woman had whispered. What did that mean? Tara shook her head, trying to ignore the growing sense of dread that was consuming her. She couldn't wait much longer. Something was coming for her, and she didn't know how to stop it. She needed answers. Desperately. But even as she made up her mind to search for the truth, she could feel it, the presence following her, lurking just out of sight, waiting for the moment it would finally reveal itself. The old woman had said it herself, "It's time." And Tara could feel it. The darkness was closing in. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If yes, kindly drop on the comment section to know what you learn, and also give the video a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed, kindly do so, and stay tuned for the next part. Thank you for watching.